Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 10, Episode 85. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being here this Tuesday. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. Weather is warm in Western PA, and we got some Steelers news for you. Probably the first in a long list of news here for the next week to 10 days. Steelers, as expected, will be playing in the 2020 Hall of Fame game announced Tuesday morning. We'll be playing the Dallas Cowboys. Pittsburgh technically will be the home team, so no surprise there with all the Canton inductees this year for the Steelers with Bill Cowher, and Troy, and Donnie Shell. Makes sense for Pittsburgh to be in the Hall of Fame game.
Yeah, look, I mean, Dallas versus the Steelers in the Hall of Fame game. You know, a lot of people, it's been speculated for several weeks now that the Steelers would be part of the Pro Football Hall of Fame game after, Art Rooney II said that the Steelers were told, several weeks ago to be ready for that announcement. Probably not surprising that the Cowboys will be the team that they play. Boy, you want to talk about a big draw for Canton this year, obviously with a couple of Steelers going to be part of that second induction, and Bill Cowher and Troy Polamalu. Steeler Nation ought to be all over that place there. That game obviously will kick off on August the 6th. It'll be played at Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium in Canton, Ohio. I believe that is a Thursday, if I'm correct. And then obviously the Hall of Fame inductions of Bill Cowher and Troy Polamalu and the rest of the class of 2020 will take place on Saturday, August the 8th there. So 5 preseason games, I guess, for the Steelers this year. We'll know the rest of the preseason schedule probably not too, probably very quickly here in the near future, but 5 games, and I guess that's also going to mean that training camp is going to open up maybe about 10 days earlier than it normally does as well.
Yeah, and that means I think it runs a little bit longer than a normal camp, maybe 18 practices, I want to say was the last time they had a Hall of Fame game. Let's protect the kickers. I know the field has been improved and upgraded, but just last time I'm getting Sean Swisham flashbacks here. So protect Boswell, and tickets go on sale on the 13th for those who want to attend the game. So just a heads up there. Yeah, you're going to see a lot of the Steelers this summer. You're going to see them almost certainly on Hard Knocks. You're going to see them for the Hall of Fame game. Obviously, that's been announced. It's going to be a very Pittsburgh-centric summer.
Absolutely, and just Hard Knocks has not been announced officially yet, right, but right. It would be still an upset if that didn't happen for sure there. So yeah, a Hall of Fame game. Look, I mean, you want to talk about some black and gold being in that stadium? Mm-hmm. There really should be. Now look, obviously Dallas has a huge fan base though, but the proximity obviously of Canton to Pittsburgh. How long a drive is that, Alex? A couple hours?
A little over 2 hours, I believe.
Yeah, so I imagine, especially with Troy and Bill Cowher going in and all, that is going to be packed with black and gold, going to be terrible towels all over the place there.
And they should be there for the Hall of Fame inductions, too, as they've done in the past for Dick LeBeau and guys like that. So I think the team will stick around to support Troy and Cowher, I would hope.
Absolutely, and as far as, look, I mean, the Steelers and the Cowboys play each other or are scheduled to play each other later in the regular season as well too. So you're going to see be a very bland game, but the more bland the better. Yep. Look, I have no issue watching anything related to the preseason, especially with the Steelers. It'll be the first of 5 games, obviously, for us to start evaluating some of these guys. So definitely look forward to that.
Absolutely. All right, to move on to some CBA news, everyone's favorite topic. We don't know a whole lot more other than deadlines have continued to be pushed back. The deadline for players to vote has been pushed back an additional 2 days to March 14th to either, ratify or shoot down the CBA proposal. And because of that, the franchise tag has been moved back to, do you have the date on the franchise tag? Monday? Is that the
Yeah, Monday, and let's see.
What day is that?
Let's see. That would be the 16th.
Okay, so 2 days after the CBA, and that's smart because you didn't want the franchise tag ahead of an unknown CBA decision.
Yeah, the franchise and transition tag. Because remember, right now, as of right now, you can still use both of those, franchise and transition tag. The deadline is 11:59:59 Eastern time, Monday morning. On what did we say, the 16th there. 1 second later, the legal tamper period, if you will, gets underway, and then obviously on the 18th, it's still scheduled to be the start of the new league year, and people are saying that's not going to get moved back here. So,
Right.
boy, you're going to have a heck of a couple of days there, right? I mean, if you're the Steelers and if obviously if the CBA gets voted in by the players, you're going to have to move real fast to get some things done. I'm guessing that we're still not going to find out about Bud Dupree until the last possible second here when it comes to him potentially receiving the franchise tag. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch this transition so quickly with these deadlines being moved back.
Yeah, the Steelers and really the whole league has kind of been in a holding pattern for these things to fall into place. But once everything finally gets decided one way or the other, then you're just going to have this wave of action. And I wrote this morning, the Steelers offseason is about to get really interesting with all the moves they have to make in a very short amount of time. We are 8 days away from the start of the new league year, and really nothing's happened yet. And there is just a flurry of decisions, tags, tenders, restructures, cuts, whatever extensions that could and probably should have to happen before then, and none of it's occurred yet. So it's gonna get wild really quickly.
Yeah, tomorrow? I mean, tomorrow officially will be 1 week away from the start of the new league year, and like as you said, absolutely nothing has happened up until now. And it's funny, I saw one of your Twitter conversations, I think yesterday. People, look, people want to tweet you. They get what they get when they make it public like that. But user House DeJarin kind of got into it, saying you don't know exactly what's going to happen. Well, the math says, yeah. I mean, look, the CBA. It's not like Omar Khan can do anything illegal here.
Right.
It's just funny to see people Bam 629 on Twitter kind of question you on this, and essentially question me, I guess, in the process there, because look, this is our job to know this stuff.
And it's not just us, for the record. You talk to anyone who knows the cap stuff. They know what Pittsburgh's in. They're not in a good spot.
Right. For people even to suggest that Omar Khan might do something, I mean, yeah, you could potentially do something maybe with some option bonuses stuff to free up a little bit of stuff, but how rare is that? And nobody's doing it. It's definitely not anything the Steelers have done in the past, and they don't have really many people to do it with anyway. So I mean, look, I mean, the best case scenario is that the CBA gets ratified, and then they can take a guy like Ben Roethlisberger and do a full contract restructure. It's not like they can break the 30% rule, if it doesn't happen. And it's not like they can get any more out of a restructure than what the CBA allows should the CBA be ratified there. So, other than a surprise, a huge increase in actual salary cap money, which nobody's expecting. I mean, we've already talked. I mean, look, we don't even have, the league has not even come out yet and said this is the official number.
Right.
For 2020. Obviously, it's been speculated all along because of percentage of growth in the past and revenue that the number will come in around $200 million. But we're still all playing on the under the assumption or under the speculation that the number will be $200 million. Obviously, could it come in at a little lower than that? Could it come in a little bit higher than that? Absolutely. What will a new CBA, ratified CBA with a couple of games in there end up meaning? Yeah, it'll probably increase a little bit, but along with a ratified CBA, as we talked about, you're going to have minimum salary. You're going to have stuff that's going to help counterbalance a lot of whatever above and beyond the $200 million salary cap number winds up being. So
Yeah.
look, folks, we don't just and somebody else accused the site of accused you of clickbaiting yesterday because you wrote about free agents realistic free agents the Steelers might be able to go after, and then now you're getting accused of, boy, you've had a rough couple of days here on the Twitter machine.
I guess I should stay away. It's going to get crazier. Yeah, I mean, listen, obviously this is Omar Khan's job. He's a much smarter man than I. This is what he lives for, and maybe he could do something crazy. But at some point, it just comes down to math. Like, there's only so many things you can do to create cap space. And we've calculated basically all those things and laid it out. And these are the options you take if you cut or restructure, extension. Obviously, a CBA getting passed will help give this team some financial flexibility. But this is an objective math equation. And it really just shows, regardless of what happens, Pittsburgh's not going to have a lot of money. And that's okay, but that's just the reality of it.
Absolutely, that is the reality of it. Look, I've done this. I mean, I've made it my it's a passion of mine to follow the CBA and salary cap, and has been for years. I mean, I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, in trying to learn all this stuff. And look, do I still make mistakes today? Absolutely. But the fact of the matter is, most of this stuff I get right.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting, though, to kind of slightly transition, because we're still, again, in the holding pattern for basically everything NFL CBA related, is that if you were going to try to create cap space and do something crazy, especially if you were really intent on keeping Vance McDonald, kind of one thing that's maybe been speculated, floated, some cryptic tweets about not tendering some of the Steelers' restricted free agents. They got three main RFAs. Technically, I think they have 4 or 5, but the three main ones are Mike Hilton, Matt Feiler, and Zach Banner. I'll start with Banner because he had a very interesting cryptic tweet that I don't really know where he's going with, but let me just read the tweet here yesterday about his future in Pittsburgh, because it was a little unsettling from my point of view. He says, quote, every ounce of my soul wants to play in the black and gold this season and every season after that, but I trust my agent and have my entire career, so hopefully we can get something done before free agency. Regardless, I'm grinding and I want to be one of 64 tackles, period. That, of course, was referencing one of the 64 starting tackles in the NFL. Is that an interpretation that he's not going to get tendered? I think that'd be a mistake if that's the path the Steelers took. It's hard to say, but that's Zach Banner's point of view.
It really does look like that he's learned that he's not getting tendered. Okay? Once again, that's speculation. I think I properly wrote that post up yesterday around the preface that, it's hard to tell, based on what he tweeted, but it could mean that he has found out that he's not going to get restricted tendered. Now, the restricted tender amount for the low, or what they would call an original round tender for him would be $2.144 million. That's speculated amount. Obviously, these tender amounts are still speculated, just as the salary cap number is. So, should the salary cap number come in a little bit higher, then these tenders would probably go up a little bit. Obviously, if the salary cap comes in a little bit lower than $200 million, you would expect maybe these tenders to shrink just a tad there. But regardless, we're talking about roughly $2 million, a little more than $2 million right now. As up against the cap as the Steelers are right now, even if you took that, let's say it is $2.1 million for a tender, and then take a minimum salary, out of that for roster displacement. I mean, you're still looking at what, $1.5 million savings, by not restricted tendering him, and $1.5 million savings is pretty big right now. And also, I guess it goes into the fact of, look, if you had the money, if cap space was no issue, you probably wouldn't think about placing an original round restricted tender on Zach Banner. However, look, I guess the question is he worth $2 million?
I think so, and I'd also say if we assume the other moves they're going to make, which is cutting Ramon Foster and letting B.J. Finney walk, and if they're so cap-strapped they can't even put a tender on Banner, they probably have to cut Foster and probably cannot re-sign Finney. How much have you gutted your offensive line depth in just a week? After losing Fred Johnson, losing Patrick Morris, your line getting older, not coming off their best year ever, you are just gutting your offensive line depth you've worked so hard to create. And that just feels like a big mistake and just philosophically against the way this team's approached building their entire roster.
Well, one thing is for certain is, Zach Banner, since being signed in 2018 during camp there, I think he dressed for one game during the 2018 season. and he did not play any offensive snaps in that game. Fast forward back to this past season, he obviously dressed for the games and played a little more than 200 snaps, albeit most of those were as a extra, reporting offensive line eligible, offensive lineman there. So I guess the good thing is that there's not a lot of tape of Zach Banner playing tackle, at least not the new and improved Zach Banner,
Right.
there. So if you were to let Zach Banner, if you don't tender him, then obviously he becomes a free agent. Is he going to be attractive to some teams out there like, say, the Denver Broncos for much more than the minimum?
Yeah, I think so. And regardless of what his market value is, if Pittsburgh's not tendering him, they're just saying we either don't want to bring you back or just can't afford you. So I don't know what his market value would be, but it's going to be out of Pittsburgh's price range apparently if they can't afford the $1.5 million total cap savings or total cap expense to tender him. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Look, this could change in a hurry if you get a CBA done. Because technically you could go to him and pay him that, because the 30% rule, even on cheap contracts, as we had the discussion with in terms of Tyler Matakavich, it still makes it kind of tough. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I mean, could you still pay this guy the let's say $2.1 million he was going to earn via the tender, via kind of a let's say a bonus and first year salary, and then sign him to a 2-year deal.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be. I don't think, and Banner I think would be silly to want to do anything more than a 2-year deal right now.
Sure.
Because if for some reason he had to play more, or ends up winning a right tackle job or what have you in 2019 and plays more, he's going to want to get paid again instead of be sooner rather than later, instead of being locked up for more than 2 years. So, I'm not going to say that in other words, I think if you get a CBA voted on and done, I think there's a chance that you could still get in a matter of moments get Banner signed before free agency hits.
I hope so, because let's just kind of walk through a scenario where you lose all those 3 guys I mentioned, Banner, Foster, and Finney. What does your line look like? Your starters still look, I guess, I don't even know. Villanueva, Feiler kicks to left guard, Pouncey, Tender, DeCastro, right guard, and a core forward, right tackle. And then who are your backups? You got nothing.
Right. I mean, you are hurting. I mean,
at both spots. Now you got a tackle need and an interior offensive line need.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, you're preaching to the choir here.
And then how do you address that? That's the big, with 6 draft picks. And apparently no money. You can't even have the money to tender Banner. Who are you going to sign in for agency?
Well, you probably have to go out and get a El Cheapo left swing tackle one that's probably going to cause a lot of nodes to get rolled up. And obviously you're banking on a lot. Assuming if indeed Feiler has to move to left guard, right? Then you're assuming that Okorafor is going to probably be the guy that's going to be your right tackle, right?
Sure, and I'd prefer to have competition there, considering the poor year Okorafor had.
Absolutely. So to me, you're probably going to have to go out to the street and get you a Kevin Colbert special.
And I would assume that would have to be a minimum salary contract, because they're paying a guy $2 million on the open market. Why didn't you just give that money to Banner? So I mean, you'd be getting literally, truly bottom of the barrel stuff. It just seems very against the Steelers' philosophy of building their offensive line depth. They've been creating this offensive line and offensive line depth for the last decade, and they might lose it almost all in a couple of weeks. And if they don't tender Banner, it would be very disappointing.
Yeah, it would. And look, it's been something we've been speculating would ultimately happen really all the offseason. We're not really giving much thought to the team not restricted tendering Mike Hilton, Matt Feiler, and Zach Banner. It's almost been kind of a given that would happen. Well, unless something, I think when we're getting here to the deadline above the deadline, I think you gotta open up the realization that it might, not all of them might not get tendered.
And then you had Bob Labriola kind of imply, and I don't know, this isn't a report, but it is something worth noting about, how expensive it would be to tender Mike Hilton, because he's going to have to be on the second round tender, because the original round tender only gives you the right of first refusal, and that's going to cost, what is the second round tender, 3.2 million dollars?
It's up over 3 million. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's set in stone yet, but even Labriola speculating about Hilton's future, and my goodness, that'd be 10 times worse than losing Banner to just let your starting nickel corner, one of the best run defending corners in football, walk like that. I mean, my goodness, they got to keep these guys. I mean, you just can't let these guys walk.
Well, you wanted to know what things would they do in order to maintain both Vance McDonald and Bud Dupree. I think you're seeing some of the potential options here.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you choose Vance over Hilton, that's just a mistake. I'll be honest with you.
Right, but on top of it, we've said that if you move on from McDonald, it's going to create quite a hole there.
It is. It's releasing Hilton. Hilton's just a better, younger player.
Right. I think you're starting to see the realization now that, okay, well, something's going to happen, because the math isn't working out on potentially, and if no new CBA is ratified, the math's not working out. If they want to tag Dupree and also keep McDonald, well, you're starting to see what might happen in order to do that.
Yeah, but again,
not that we agree with it, obviously,
sure.
But you're going to have to make some concessions here.
Yeah, and we don't want to say that these things are 100%. We don't know which direction this team's going to go, but it's like the offensive line. If you lose Hilton, you just spend all this time, Kevin Colbert, talking about, man, we built this defense up, got to keep this defense together. It's a good core. We're going to return it. We're going to lose Hargrave, but okay, we're going to keep everybody else. Now you're going to lose Hargrave and Hilton. And yeah, Sutton can come in and replace him in the slot, and that's fine, but then what happens if there's any injury at corner? Then you're really stressing your depth, and Justin Lane better be ready in year 2. Can you run dime packages? Who is your dime defender now? Because it was Sutton in the past, and now if he's a starting nickel corner, who's your 6 DB? It's creating you're just creating more problems for yourself you have to address, and it just seems so counterproductive.
We're going to learn real quick, so that's we're going to learn real quick what's going to happen here. So I mean, obviously you hate to see them not be able to retain Hilton.
Oh yeah.
But if given the choice between Hilton and Banner, who are you choosing?
I mean, Hilton's a no-brainer there.
Right. If given the choice between Hilton and Feiler, who are you choosing?
Well, it seems like Feiler's the one guy no one's talking about. I don't know who I choose with those two. I lean Feiler, I guess, just because, again, the whole offensive line, like, what do you do in that situation? But it sounds like it might come down to a Hilton Banner kind of decision.
Well, I mean, yeah. It could. I mean, look, as we just said, the speculation all along by us has been that Hilton, Feiler most definitely will receive second round tenders. I mean, can you afford to even give a right of first refusal tender to two guys in both Feiler and Hilton? That would save you a little bit of money, but would it it's not going to guarantee that you keep them.
Right.
Because an offer sheet to either one of those guys might be one that the Steelers don't want to play with or match. So you could roll the dice and save a little bit of money and only put the low original. What it would be called? It would be called the right of first refusal because there's no original round on either one of those two players. So, right. But it's still the same amount as what the low tender, would be as for Banner, which is a little over $2 million there. So it's just called a different thing depending on the player, whether or not he was a previously drafted player. So it's either a low tender, what they call a low tender, or a right of first refusal.
Right, and the reason why, for those who don't know, Banner gets a comp pick because you put original round tender on him. He was a 4th round pick, so you get a 4th round comp for him. If another team tried to offer him a contract, no one's going to do that. So that's why you can do Banner with the original round tender, and you probably have to do second round for Feiler and for Mike Hilton.
Right, and that pick would come this year.
Is that okay? I wasn't sure about that.
That's not losing players in a restricted process. I believe results in that year compensation from the other team.
Okay, thank you. Because somebody asked me that last night, and I couldn't remember if it was for
Right.
the upcoming draft or for next year's draft. But yeah, I just you got to keep Hilton, you got to keep Feiler. I think those have to be no brainers. I mean, I know you probably haven't done the math yet, but if you didn't tender one of those guys, would you even have the money to be able to still keep Vance? Would that cover it?
Well, I mean, 1.5. I think you still have to do some restructures,
Yeah.
obviously, along the
Right,
way.
right.
But it gets you closer.
Right, but how close does it get?
I'd have to do.
to
I
there? Yeah.
haven't broken it down on the spreadsheet yet. But I mean, but once again, you're only saving because of the way the rule of 51 works and roster displacement. You're not saving but about $1.5 million.
Right, right. And so to lose Banner over 1.5 million and to hurt your offensive line depth that much, it just seems so counterproductive.
Right, but maybe the hope is to get him signed to a 2-year deal, still pay him about the same amount of money he would have received in a restricted tender, and then get have that first year cap hit
I
a
hope
lot
so.
lower. But I mean, even so, what's his NFL minimum for this year, and then what's half? If you sign him to a 2-year deal, what's half of the signing bonus? I mean,
All right. How much are you really saving?
yeah, how much are you going to save? $500,000 that way?
Yeah. It's just some couch cushion, dumpster diving here trying
I mean, it's tight. I mean,
Yeah.
that shows you how tight it is. So
Sure.
look, we don't know for sure. We're trying to read in between the lines of a very vague tweet, but for why else would he put that out there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What else? What else does he have to gain by putting something like that out there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. And again, we'll get our answer soon because the deadline for all these things is certainly coming up. Dave, some other Steelers news. Micah Fitzpatrick announced he's going to continue to wear his number 39 jersey. So good news for all fans who bought a jersey for Minka this past year. He's going to stick with 39, kind of citing how well it treated him this year in Pittsburgh. So not going to rock the boat there. So that's good news. I assume you have probably no really thoughts on that.
No, look. I mean, a lot of people have asked us throughout last season and throughout this off season so far is wondering if they should buy Minka jerseys because wondering if he was going to have the number switch. I think it's kind of been understood, mostly, but not guaranteed, that he would probably keep the number.
Mm-hmm.
And now they should have tried to get this put to bed sooner, I think, but I still think they're going to sell plenty of Minka Fitzpatrick jerseys here.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Some other Steelers housekeeping. Steelers have hired Cole Marceau as their new football administration coordinator. I don't know exactly when that hire happened, but I saw on the team website poking around yesterday. He's likely filling the shoes of Samir Suleiman, who took a job with the Carolina Panthers. Basically, Suleiman and Marceau's assumed job is going to be working with the CBA, which comes in very handy considering all the CBA stuff to wade through very quickly once this thing gets passed at some point, especially if it gets passed here right before the start of the new league year. Previously, Marceau was working as a senior manager on the NFL's Labor Operations Management Council. That's a nonprofit that represents clubs in CBA negotiations. He's a Dartmouth alum, played quarterback, converted to tight end, and played with Dan Rooney, who's Art Rooney's son, so there's probably a bit of a connection there. So just a heads up, Steelers have been adding to their front office to fill the shoes of Samir Suleiman.
Any chance now this team goes after, let's say Banner, they lose Banner, any chance tackle comes into play later in the draft? In other words, could we have a guard center, a guard/center, and then maybe a tackle? I mean, you only have 6 spots. I mean, currently, it sure would be nice to know that you could be able to trade down now, or would trade down. But obviously that's not guaranteed. And as we talked about on the previous podcast there, if this team trades down at any point, obviously the second round would be probably the position that would garner you the most in return, in other words, you don't have a 5th round to play with right now. I mean, I guess you could trade one of those 4th rounds and maybe pick up, another a 5th rounder. But, I mean, does that really matter,
Yeah, well, at this point, to answer your first part of the question, yeah, you could see interior offensive line and tackle if Banner's not there because you got to start adding competition to these guys. Yeah, some guys were returning like Derwin Gray and who can be a guard, maybe a little bit of tackle as well. But yeah, I mean, you could do both. But absolutely, you have to really take a hard look at trading back from 49. You may do it twice. You may trade back from 49, pick up a third, and may do it in the fourth round too to get a fifth and a sixth or something like that, because you got a whole lot of holes to plug. You got no money to do it with, and you only have 6 draft picks right now. That puts you in a really tough spot to try to plug all these holes.
You can see a lot of Kevin Colbert specials out there here.
Yeah.
A lot of those minimum salary kind of guys here before too long. I mean, look, regardless, they're not going to have a lot of money to spend on free agency, however this thing works out, Right. So.
But speaking of which, I do have my free agent wish list at wide receiver, which somebody called clickbait. I don't know how that is in a world where Jameis Winston gets debated to be a Steeler. Me talking about Farrah Cooper is apparently a little too far out there for some folks, but I have a list
just
of
trying to drive that traffic, Alex.
Yeah, people see Farrah Cooper when they come clicking. So I have him as kind of the most realistic option on the list as a potential kick returner. Pittsburgh brought him in for a pre-draft visit when he was coming out of South Carolina in 2016. Just kind of a smaller guy, but play in the slot, play on the outside, kind of thickly built, a physical type of dude, kind of fits what the Steelers look for. I'll run through the rest of the names and I'll get your take here, Dave. Chris Moore from Baltimore, where I liked him out of Cincinnati, kind of got phased out in Baltimore last season, but has had success against Pittsburgh, can be a vertical threat, help out on special teams as well. Trevor Davis from Miami, journeyman already, had some really good speed coming out of Cal's, worked in the return game, kind of a common theme here because I'm looking for some kick return options, so I like him. And then a couple of bigger names, Philip Dorsett from New England, who's never really had a great career. It's always kind of been okay. He said he's going to really test free agency this year after a pretty quiet year with New England this past season. Kind of got lacked play time at the end of 2019, so he's going to test the market. And then this one is just kind of a dot connecting suggestion. Paul Richardson from Washington, who had that big deal with the Redskins and got released after being injured and just kind of lack of productivity. But Ike Hilliard was his positional coach the last 2 years in Washington. He can be a vertical threat. He's still only 27 years old. Probably a little more on the expensive side of things, just based off what the contract he's on and some of his past productivity. But if the market is really low, and I think it's going to kind of be depressed because this rookie class is so good, so teams are going to sit there and say, let's just wait and draft a rookie receiver as opposed to spending it on a middling free agent. I think that can help drive some of these prices down. So Richardson is the last name on my wish list.
Yeah, look, I mean, I've said this all along. I knew, because obviously you've done this in the past. These are realistic names.
Mm-hmm.
And for everybody out there that want them to go bigger names, that's just not the Steelers' MO anyway, and second, as we've talked about several times, throughout the offseason with the cap situation and all like that, it's just not going to happen.
All right. And to be fair, last year when they had cap space, I was suggesting some big names like Bradley Roby, who they had interest in. They made an offer to. He ended up going to Houston. I talked about how they should go after Jordan Hicks, who got a really big deal in Arizona. So when they have money, I will talk about bigger names, but they don't have it this year. So we've got to look smaller, look at guys like Chris Moore, Trevor Davis. Those guys are basically signing for the minimum. Those are the types of deals that are really going to work for Pittsburgh this offseason.
Right. Guys that you're not going to be afraid of still drafting players to potentially replace, Right. These are hole fillers. I mean, and call, I think you laid it out. Look at just last offseason with Steven Nelson, Dante Moncrief, and who was the other one?
Mark Barron.
Barron. I mean, you still went into the draft and drafted those positions,
Yep. Same with Morgan Burnett in 2018.
Right. And look, I mean, even though you spent a little bit more, annual per salary last year, they still addressed those positions because they needed to, because those guys were temporary fixes at best. And obviously Moncrief washed out uber quick, and thank goodness they got what looks like now great value in Steven Nelson, but
Mm-hmm.
It still didn't prevent him from going into last year's draft and getting a Justin Lane. So whatever they do here free agency wise, it's not going to be exciting, and it's going to be players that they could potentially replace in the draft anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, none of these names would prevent this team from drafting a receiver or any of the positions I've talked about. So I think I have one more wish list coming for the defensive line that'll probably come later this week. It's got some very, again, typical bottom of the barrel type names, but I think run defense is pretty cheap, and if you lose Hargrave, you probably want to look to signing a veteran in the offseason because you can't go into the year with Big Dan being your starter.
So you're saying Jameis Winston's not coming? Poor. Look, I love him. I love Matt Bowen's work. You know,
Oh yeah.
And I think he's kind of forced to write a kind of article that he probably didn't want to write. And I doubt he'd be able to tell you the salary cap situation of all these teams. Go ahead and call Jameis Winston the perfect fit or whatever you want. But there's just the realistic aspect of it is what he's going to cost versus what the Steelers have. I don't care if he was the ideal fit times 3. It's just not going to happen.
I suppose in some sort of la-la land where you could madden this thing up and just put him on the roster, in theory he might be a good fit as someone that would sit, but in the reality of it, it's not going to work for a million reasons. Hey, the Steelers have talked about how they don't have any interest in adding to the quarterback room. That's been something they've said time and time again. Obviously, Winston's capable of starting somewhere, or at least competing for a starting job. The dude, for as many interceptions as he threw, has as many good plays as bad, so he can definitely go to a place to start or compete. That's not going to happen in Pittsburgh. And then obviously, the money is not even in the realm of possibility of being able to afford that. So the fact that this is even getting talked about not only nationally, but now in local circles, is just, I said this on Twitter today, it's the epitome of offseason boredom.
Right, and look, I mean, even if you want to, is Winston, character and all, really a perfect fit for the Steelers? No.
Yeah, it's ludicrous for me to even talk about it. I think it's just insane.
And look, Jason, I think Jason Lockenfora has thrown out Eric Ebron, tight end Eric Ebron. Okay, that's probably a little bit more realistic than Jameis Winston, but not by much. You look at what some of these tight ends got paid in free agency last year. The CJ Uzomas and the who was another Jesse
Nick Boyle, they all got $6 million per year.
Yeah, what is that? What is that going to turn into for a guy like Eric Ebron? Okay, who has drop problems, who has injury problems, but that didn't stop some of those other guys from getting bigger-ish deals last year during free agency. People think that these guys are going to come free and sign for $1 million. It's just not going to happen. Jason Witten not going to sign for minimum salary.
What did Greg Olsen get in Seattle?
It was wasn't it like $7 million or $8 million total or something like that? And I told people it's going to be a lot more than the minimum because he's played in the league long enough. It's silly to go play for peanuts like that.
Yeah, he got a 1 year $7 million deal. I think Ebron's projected to get around $7.4 million per year over like a 3 or 4 year deal. So not going to be able to afford that for Pittsburgh.
Now that's clickbait.
Yeah, that is clickbait, and Jameis Winston is just absurdity.
Yeah, I just look from right out of the gate, this team, Kevin Colbert, Mike Tomlin, Art Rooney II have all said we're happy with the quarterback situation. We're happy with the quarterback situation. We're happy with the quarterback situation. How surprised would you be if they even drafted one? I would be stunned. People say, "Oh, you're going to eat your words. You're going to get Jalen Hurts." I don't. If they did draft a quarterback, I wouldn't think it'd be Jalen Hurts, but I don't know. I'll be stunned if they draft a quarterback this year, or really if they sign other than maybe a guy out of a tryout basis to. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they need another rookie camp arm or whatever. Outside of that, I just don't see any quarterbacks being. I don't know. Maybe you swap out the Ohio State kid. Maybe you find someone an upgrade of him for off the street. But other than that, it ain't happening.
Yeah, nothing significant. I think Barrett gets carried to rookie minicamp, probably gets cut after that, assuming all is going well with Ben, because at that point you kind of just keeping him just for having him in rookie minicamp and won't need him there. But anyway, yeah, they're not doing anything meaningful with the quarterback spot, and we've known that. This is not new. It's just, national media feels like they don't even recognize this. We've known about this for months now, basically.
I guess they're getting us to talk about it, so mission accomplished.
I guess, but I'm here to yell at how stupid it is and how just crazy of an idea it is to even consider. I'm not entertaining the idea the way that some people, even local outlets are, which is just, again, I think it's the offseason boredom because nothing has happened in Pittsburgh for 2 months, basically. It's going to change. It's going to get crazy here basically the next couple of days, but right now we're all in a holding pattern.
Right.
All right, Dave. Last thing I want to talk about, just kind of touch on the pro day circuit. Steelers have a couple big pro days coming up. Clemson is on the 12th. You got Oklahoma State today. Oklahoma's tomorrow. I think Wisconsin's coming up. I think you're at least going to see Tomlin and/or Colbert at Clemson. They were there last year. You got some good prospects, obviously, with that national title, appearance team. You're going to have a lot of talent there. So I assume Pittsburgh will be there in a significant way. I do want to also mention the Steelers have a private visit scheduled with Louisiana guard Kevin Dotson. This is per Justin Mello. Dotson, one of the biggest combine snubs, so a lot of teams are trying to get a good look at him because he was not invited to Indy. He's truly one of the best run-blocking guards in this year's draft, and actually was a first-team AP All-American, the first Raging Cajun ever to be named first-team AP All-American. So really high praise there. I watched his tape. We have a scouting report coming up on him in the next day or two. Just a true mauler in the run game, Dave.
Yeah, I have to turn on the tape on him. Haven't gotten to that yet with him, but I definitely. How much is out there on him?
I think I found 3 games. They were broadcast tape, not the all 22, but there is a little bit out there on him.
All right. We're talking about the pro day tour for Colbert and Tomlin this year. Normally, and they've said this over the past few years anyway, they like to go where they can see the most as many kind of draft eligible players, I think, as possible. And that's obviously why, they constantly show up at Clemson. They constantly show up at Ohio State, Alabama, LSU. I think we're to really pay close attention to is maybe some of the other Power 5 schools that maybe not necessarily on the annual tour. Texas, right? I mean, Texas, we would be at this point right now kind of shocked if one or both don't show up at the Texas Pro Day.
Right, because you got some big names like Devin Duvernay, Brandon Jones, the safety from Texas, gives me a very Cam Sutton feel. Apparently his football IQ is blowing teams away, and he's going to work out at his pro day. He's had a torn labrum, hasn't been able to do stuff at the Senior Bowl or Combine, so I'm very much expecting at least one of Tomlin or Colbert being there for Texas on April 1st, I believe is that pro day.
Right, and Michigan's probably another one, right?
Yep, Michigan, they're always – Tomlin's going to go to Michigan.
One or both of them might be there. Where else might they might because, look, I think, too, they really would have to know to kind of go to even though a Power 5 school, maybe with one prospect, though, are you going to use your resources to go see that one player that you're not 100% sure is going to be on the board at 49? Even so, are you guaranteed to draft them at that point?
Right, that's where usually you bring those guys in for a visit. You'll send a scout or a coordinator to those locations. So, yeah, you would expect Pittsburgh to be at the names we just talked about. You could throw in the other usual places they end up, local places like Pittsburgh, West Virginia. But, yeah, I'm looking at Clemson, Texas, Michigan as being the 3 where they're almost certainly going to be at.
Do the visits, I mean, look, they always hold water to some degree, but will they hold a little bit more water this year?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, they're always pretty good about drafting multiple names off their pre-draft visit list. I mean, who were the guys last year? Deontay Johnson, I think, was one of them. Who all was part of that list last year?
I had to pull that up.
I mean, they're always good for usually 2 or 3 every single year that become Steelers. I have the 2019 list here. Yeah, let's see what they got. Deontay Johnson was one. Garrett Brumfield was the UDFA. He ended up coming in. Gilbert III came in for a visit. Justin Lane came in for a visit. So what is that? 3-4 guys. So, yeah. You should get at least 2 or 3 of the pre-draft visitors like normal come in and eventually become Steelers in the draft.
And they brought in a lot of guys that we thought that they might bring in,
Mm-hmm.
On top of Savage, they brought in, and
Rock Ya-Sin was rumored to be the pick at 20 if they didn't trade up, so they brought him in for a visit too.
I think Dave T, I think, and we'll obviously have him on at some point here prior to the draft as we do every year and have. What I'm hearing, I think that he's going to probably be telling us is that Chase Claypool is the guy that the Steelers are hot and heavy on at 49. I believe that's the rumblings I'm already hearing through other people who have listened to him talk a little bit so far this offseason.
Notre Dame, another pro day they're probably going to be at. They were at last year. A lot of prospects this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another one. When is the Notre Dame pro day this year? Do you know?
I can look it up. And also, by the way, Rocky Sin's a great example of one of those like one-off prospects. That school doesn't have a ton of talent, that where you bring him in for a visit instead, instead of going out to his pro day. That's kind of the way that you work that. Let's see when the Notre Dame pro day is. Let me pull up the whole schedule. Let's see. Notre Dame is on April 1st as well, which is the same day as Texas. So maybe Coach goes one, Tomlin goes the other. We'll see how they divvy it up.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they divide and conquer on that one there. Let's see what the Miami Pro Day is that same day in Washington.
UL Lafayette that day with Dotson. That'll be interesting. Maybe they send Surratt down there or something.
Huh. Okay. Interesting. So obviously we'll be tracking this, all the way through, and it'd be interesting to see. And look, they always usually end up drafting a couple that come in, and obviously the pro day circuits usually mean a lot. As if we can find out about any dinners, those will be important, during this process as well. As I mentioned time and time again, pay attention to the Senior Bowl invites. If you're looking at seniors, if you're looking at underclassmen, those Power 5 kids from those big schools are usually highly targeted, in there when it comes to underclassmen and all. And look, when it comes to underclassmen, try to research that character a little bit there, the old hearts and smarts kind of thing on top of it, which is hard to quantify. Obviously, look at the spark scores. The sparkier the better. The Steelers tend to gravitate towards the sparkier players on top of it. So, what did you think about the contextual? Did you see any of the contextualization I did on the Tennessee edge rusher?
Yeah, I've always liked Darrell Taylor. I think he had a pretty quiet Senior Bowl week, and yeah, I think we have to consider edge as a position that they're probably going to take maybe higher than we think. So I think Taylor's going to be on that list. Curtis Weaver from Boise State's going to be on that list. I think in my next mock draft, you're going to see an edge guy even higher than the 6th round I had in my last one.
I think it's definitely a possibility there. And boy, when you look at, the overall top to bottom, the sack reel on Taylor. I don't know what you would grade it on a scale of 1 to 10. I'd probably give it like an 8. I think.
Okay, that's pretty high praise.
7 to 8 there. I think you do see some limitations with him though. With the count, look, he beat a lot of guys, around the edge. Okay, he's got a good get off and was able to beat a lot of guys around the edge there. However, there are some other moves in there, bull rush and whatnot, and really I think you see the bull rush more with him on some of his pressures. Throughout the season, which obviously I didn't contextualize those. But look, anytime a guy, 19 and a half career college sacks is nothing to sneeze about unless you're Jarvis Jones. And it's not like he just completely, he did beat some tackles around the edge, but there was a lot more level of athleticism, I think, with him as opposed to a guy like Jarvis Jones when I broke those down years ago. You could kind of, I think you can kind of see the writing on the wall with Jarvis, and especially, boy, he didn't test well, that year, and I think they got what they paid for,
yeah.
Top to bottom there. But Taylor, I think because of his sack numbers, people are trying to say, well, man, this is maybe a second round guy. I don't think so. I think his lack, I think where the places where he needs to work still, especially become a more complete pass rusher, and the fact that he's still got some growth to do, I think he's not bad as a run defender, but obviously, look, any young edge defender coming out is going to need to improve on setting the edge and that kind of stuff there. But I think he's a solid 3rd or 4th round kind of guy.
Okay. Have you watched much of Curtis Weaver yet out of Boise State?
Just some sacks.
Okay. Did you get a feel of who you like more, just kind of based off that initial?
No, I got to dive deeper into Weaver. Have you watched enough to have one over the other?
No, but I know that's kind of my next step to start watching some of these edge guys.
To read some of this like PFF and all like that, I think they have Weaver much higher than Darrell Taylor.
Okay. I believe it. Yeah, I think Weaver is probably closer to a day 2 candidate than the guy like Darrell Taylor is. But I think he has a chance to be on the radar.
In fact, PFF in their draft guide has Taylor as a 3rd round projection, and I think they have Weaver. Oh, they got Weaver as a 1st round projection.
Oh, all right.
He had they have him down for 15 sacks in 2019. The bad thing is you can't find all. It's easier to find all the Tennessee games than it is
Mm-hmm.
the Boise State. Maybe I'll work on that today. Try to get a contextualization of as many of Curtis Weaver's career sacks that he had. They have him down for 15 in 2019, 12 in 2018, and 5 in 2017. So. Here's a little bottom line note they have on him. Weaver's athleticism or lack thereof is terrifying. He doesn't have a body of work against quality tackles to prove it won't matter. But we've also never seen an edge dominate the group of 5 to the degree Weaver did.
But they have a first-round grade on him.
But they have a first-round grade on him.
Yeah, there you go.
They got
All
him
right.
22 overall on their big board as well too. So that's that's a little strong, I think.
Yeah.
And for him not being Power 5, right?
Yeah, that's a good point as well. But he's got the production, he's got the size. Because if they're drafting an edge guy, he's going to be like 250 plus. They're not drafting a 240-pound skinny dude in all likelihood, unless he can offer something else like a Josh Uche who can wear a lot of hats.
Normally you see these tweeners at 6'3", 6'4", kind of slide a little bit for some, especially if they don't have the 270 pounds,
Right.
If they're under 270 and a little bit height challenge there at 6'3", those guys usually slide on down a little bit.
You think this team could go defense again with their first pick? I know it's not a first rounder, but first selection.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, everybody and their brother is saying it's all going to be offense, and I understand it. I mean, look, you need more help on that side of the ball than defense, as things stand right now. So I'm not gonna say they're not gonna go defense. I'll put it to you that way.
Yeah, I'm with you. By the way, just quick recap of the pro days this team has been at. Again, we have not seen Colbert or Tomlin anywhere yet, but they've been sending scouts to Illinois, Auburn, Kansas State, and Miami, Ohio. So I think we have a couple more today. We'll check that out, and we'll pass along any word if we see any Steelers scouts at these places. So just some area scouts being sent out right now. Nothing too notable.
All right, what else do we have to discuss? Anything?
I think that was everything. I think we can jump into some reader emails. Close out the show.
The Browns have released veteran linebacker Christian Kirksey.
No, the Steelers will not sign him to anyone inevitably asking us about Kirksey.
Let's see here if I can get myself back to the email here, which I clicked out of here. I don't think we have many of them today, to be honest with you.
We're going to get a lot more when this thing starts picking up.
Yeah. Richard Hudspeth writes in, I recently watched a video from Steelers.com where one of the panel suggested that Vince Williams may be a cap casualty also. I get the thought process, but at what point are we gutting the team for Dupree? Can you guys run through the scenario where the team doesn't keep Dupree and analyze what we could be keeping? For instance, is Hargrave then Hargrave's not it doesn't fit what the Steelers would do. Putting a franchise tag on, which would probably be even more expensive, right? Than or right around. What's the franchise tag on a defensive tackle?
I'm not sure. I imagine it's the same.
15.5 million. So about the same, a little cheaper than Bud Dupree, and also with Hargrave technically not being an every down player for the Steelers, it's just hard to imagine them, regardless, not in other words, not placing the franchise tag on Dupree and then putting it on Hargrave. I just don't see that happening.
If you lost both, I guess you could sit there and say, okay, you're going to keep Barron, you're going to keep Vance. You can definitely tender all your RFAs and have some money in free agency to do something with that probably isn't better than just keeping Dupree.
Right. I mean, you're still not going to keep Chicolo.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised they kept Barron at that number.
Even if they didn't tag Dupree, I think if you didn't tag Dupree, they'd keep Barron. Because I'm not even 100% convinced that they are going to cut Barron now. Like, they probably need to, but I'm not 100% convinced it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen. I'm like 60-40 on it, but I'm not. I think that, Schickel and Foster are almost guarantees. I'm not there on Barron.
Well, let's see here. Look, as we talked not too terribly long ago, it's foolish to cut Vince Williams for what you would save cap wise.
Yeah.
Which
Could you
is
save what,
barely
500K?
nothing.
What's the savings on Williams? Like 500,000?
What did I say with him? Let me look up his number real quick.
It's effectively nothing.
Right, because by the time you have hold on a minute here, let me pull up the number.
I mean, I know we've had this discussion before. I don't know why so many people in the media want to cut Vince Williams. The play is an issue. The cap savings is nothing. There's really no incentive to make that decision.
Look, in dead money alone, you're going to have $6 million, and he's scheduled to he's scheduled to count a little over $7 million this year against the cap, and this obviously. Even if the post-June rule comes back into play as part of the CBA, you don't experience that savings until June 1st. So it would make no sense. If you're able to have a post-June designation, which right now you don't because of there not being a CBA, it certainly don't make sense to go that way. So the only other way is to cut him outright, and you save $968,000, a little more than $968,000 in cap space, and then subtract the minimum salary from that because of roster displacement, and then that gives you your effective cap space saved, which is about 400,000,
Mm-hmm.
500,000.
Yeah.
So,
AK, no, not
are you really going to cut? Or do you really need that cap space, that $500,000 in cap space, that bad that you're going to cut that quality of a player?
No.
And once again, don't look at the cap charge on these players. Look at what their base salary is set to earn. He's set to earn $4 million in 2020. For a guy with his experience and what he gives you, even if he's going to be potentially a backup, that's peanuts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just not going to happen.
That's like Alejandro Villanueva, $5 million. That's peanuts.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing. So back to kind of Richard's question here, I think it's outlandish to suggest that Vince Williams would be a cap casualty. As far as not tagging a Dupree and really not using a tag on anybody, yeah, I mean it's going to open up $16 million that you'd have to have earmarked. That way, which obviously would allow you to have all your restricted tenders that we talked about there, and Mike Hilton, Matt Feiler, and Zach Banner, and maybe a free agent or something along those lines. Higher than minimum free agent there. But rest assured, this team's going to be. Obviously, you could keep a guy like McDonald, and as Alex pointed out, if you really wanted to keep a Barron at that point by not tagging Dupree, you could. But look, the narrative right now and has been for most of the offseason is that this team's going to tag Dupree. So I'm not sure I would bet my entire house on it right now, but it would be considered a minor upset even at this point, I think, if Dupree were not to get the tag.
Yeah, I think it'd be a pretty big upset. It's just hard to try to wade through everything with the CBA noise. It's really complicating things all the more.
So, but we'll have our answer soon. Let's see here if I can find another one here. Daniel J. Devlin. Hello, Dave and Alex. Still love the show. Well, that's good. I haven't run him off yet. I usually listen to the show while walking my dog, but he has not been eager to go out recently with a cold temperature, so I got behind and had to do some binge listening, but am still a little behind. I had a couple of questions. You discussed drafting a center who may be able to play guard and said was moved difficult to draft a guard to play center. What do you prioritize in a center who can play guard? Size, mobility, athleticism, intelligence, other. Would the kid from Wisconsin be your choice? Can you get him in the 4th or 5th round since centers seem to be undervalued? I know there's been several debates about tight end. I'm a Boilermaker and a fan of Hopkins, but would rather see him taken in the 3rd round. What round is your preference if Hopkins is the tight end choice? What round do you think he will go? With limited draft choices and cap issues, What positions provide best opportunity with veteran minimum or inexpensive? Boy, he's got a bunch of questions here. Or inexpensive free agents. You mentioned cutting Barron, Chicolo, and Foster to be able to sign Dupree, and wonder if it was possible to keep Vance. Would this be possible if cut Finney? Well, Finney's already a free agent, so there's no cutting there. It's just you're probably not going to be able to re-sign B.J. Finney and then redo needed contract. I guess he's saying, is it possible to cut? His question, I guess, is centered on can it cut Finney and redo a contract if needed? Well, once again, Finney is not under contract right now for 2020. Finally, Alex said a couple of shows ago, Ben and Coakley's class was the last time that the Steelers took a non-Power 5 conference player in the first two rounds. I'd be willing to bet Alex a bag of Goodies popcorn. That is not correct.
Okay. Dre Archer, he was a third round pick.
He was a third rounder, wasn't he?
Yeah, and they had a first and second round pick this year. I mean, I can go back and double check my work.
Deontay Johnson was a third rounder. Edmonds and Washington were both Power 5. Watt and Juju both Power 5. Artie and Sean Davis both Power 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bud and Sinquez both Power 5. Ryan Shazier and Tuitt. I mean, Tuitt's considered Power 5 at Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean, you get the whole independent thing, but this is from a big school. I think that qualifies. That's fine.
Jarvis and Le'Veon, DeCastro, Mike Adams, obviously Power 5. Hayward and Gilbert, both Power 5. Pouncey and Worlds were both Power 5. Vander Ziggy Hood and Craig, it was just Craig Herbert was a third rounder. So Vander Hood out of Missouri, Mendenhall and Swede, Timmons and Woodley, Santonio Holmes, Heath Miller, Bryant McFadden, both Power 5, and Ben and Coakley, 2004. I don't see where you missed anything.
Nope, I think
unless he's trying to argue that Notre Dame,
or something like Deontay Johnson being the second pick and it's a third rounder. I mean, you can get into some semantics there, but my point is first and second round is what I said, non-Power 5, and you have to go back to 04.
Yeah. Okay. What about his other questions here? Discuss drafting a center who may be able to play guard, and said move was difficult to draft a guard to play center. To me, I think it's just. I mean, look, not everybody can just go right in off the street and play center.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to teach how to snap. And then in terms of what I look for in a center who can play guard, I look for size. I think the Steelers like to have bigger guards, someone with length and just overall size to take on some of these D tackles. They generally aren't with the super undersized, you think of the old school inside zone type schemes that had some really smaller linemen. Generally not the case in Pittsburgh. They want bigger guys to be able to run their power, their gap, their man scheme. So I just look for a center with some size. And of course you want some mobility as well, especially if you're going to be on the move pulling.
And he says, can you get the kid from Wisconsin? Can you get him in the 4th or 5th round? I really doubt that Tyler Baez is going to be off the board by the 3rd round at least, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking for most of these centers, the Hennessy's, the Baez types, you're probably going to have to do with that at your comp pick in the 3rd round. So that's probably the place you're going to need to take those guys.
He says several debates. Let's see. What round is your preference if Hopkins is the tight end of choice? I think Alex has made it clear he'd be fine with him at 49.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you can get him later, that'd be even more ideal, but I wouldn't have a big problem with that at 49. Will that happen? I can tell. And I'd be okay with Trotman at 49, I think, as well. Will it happen? I mean, I don't know. I think it's probably, if they keep Vance and Vanette, then you may push tight end down, especially with all the other needs to address. I'm just going to repeat they're going to have to make an investment in tight end eventually, and I'd rather do it sooner than later.
How many go in the 1st round?
Probably 0, unless Komet sneaks in there. But
how many go in the 2nd round?
I'll say 2 or 3.
That many, huh? And I guess you subscribe to the fact that Komet might be a 2nd round guy.
Yeah, I still think. I mean, I think the tight end board's all over the place, but I still think the consensus is that he's going to be the first tight end off the board. Not a guarantee, but more likely him than anybody else.
And where would you rank him immediately after? I mean, are you trying to tell me now that Komet is your first tight end, or or you agree with the fact that he might be the first tight end?
No, I'm just saying in terms of what will happen. I'm not saying that's my reality. I just think that's the consensus of where he is going to go. I don't know after that. I think Trotman is going to be in the mix. Hopkins will be in the mix, but I suspect that Trotman will end up going above Bryson Hopkins. So those, I think, are going to be probably the top two guys that get taken.
Okay. Let's see. He says, what round do you think Hopkins will go?
My feeling is, in the reality of it, probably somewhere later second round, somewhere in the third round.
With limited draft choices and cap issues, what position provide best opportunity with veteran minimum or inexpensive free agents? I guess a lot. Look, we talked about Banner early in the show. If they let Banner loose, and also unable to sign, if Finney walks, you'd have to think that they're going to address an offensive lineman for the cheap, right?
I do, because you want some veteran leaders in there. You want some guys that have played in the NFL that have shown some position flexibility and versatility. You don't want to go into this thing with just a bunch of backups that have never played football before. So, yeah, I think offensive line it would be the short answer to that. And I really think someone like Max Garcia fits perfectly what the Steelers are looking for. Plus, their history with him also makes sense.
Right. And look, I mean, if something doesn't work out and McDonald doesn't have, McDonald isn't retained past March 18th, you're going to have to do something with Vannett, or somebody else. I mean, I
mean, there are no tight ends. I can't find a tight end, even in free agency, I would even consider signing.
Not even for the minimum?
I mean, I'm going to subscribe to the Dave Bryan here of minimum. You give anyone the minimum, but I can't find a name. I mean, you can go through the list. There's no one that even seems semi-attractive.
Right. And that's why kind of that plays into kind of theory. You need to try to maybe because you don't know what's Vannett going to get on the open market. If the tight end market is that bad, look, by no means is Vannett going to light it up. But I mean, could he even potentially get $3 million out on the market right now?
I mean, Jesse surprised me with how much he got last year. It's not that the tight end market's even bad. It's just there's a couple of top tier guys, and then there was a pretty decent fall off of that. Yeah, I just
let me put it to you this way: okay. If you're Nick Vannett and his agent right now, what would it take for you per year to not test free agency?
It's a good question. Yeah, if Pittsburgh's offering me the minimum or just above it, I might as well test and see. Not going to hurt. I can come back to my low ball offer from Pittsburgh. Yeah, it would probably take maybe.
What if Kevin Colbert says, "Look, here it is. Take it or leave it"?
I mean, I don't know. I think if you're getting $2 or $3 million from Pittsburgh, you'll take it. If you're getting basically the minimum or just above it, then you're at least going to test and look. That's my approach if I was Vannett.
I think he tested. I think there's a decent chance he's gone. I mean, once again, is he a guy that's going to command big money? Well, I mean, did we really think guys like CJ Uzomah and some of these other guys were going to get $6 million per year last year? Wow.
That's fair. Yeah, so maybe you end up keeping McDonald, losing Vannett, and you draft to replace Vannett and see where Gentry's progression is.
I mean, obviously, look, I mean, where is Vannett in the food chain? And we, based on his play, I mean, it took him a little while to get settled in. I mean, he wasn't as great a blocker as probably what they maybe kind of hoped and thought he would be. He had a bad ball catch in there. From bailed Rudolph out on a play. Good teammate, obviously. I mean, to me, he's a guy that could at least get $3 million out on the market, I would think.
But you're not going to pay him $3 million if you're Pittsburgh, are you?
I don't see how I can.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the first part of it. Yeah, it's a really tough sell for me. I don't know. It'll be very interesting. We got a lot of questions, a lot of answers, but we're going to start learning and figuring this stuff out within a week.
I mean, within a week, is Zach Gentry going to be the last man? Is he going to be carrying the tight end flag?
He's going to be like that meme of Will Smith in The Fresh Prince and standing in that empty room by himself, wondering who's all around him. Yeah, I mean, again, my expectation is at least one of McDonald or Vannett is going to be on this roster come the start of the new league year. I think it's more likely McDonald than Vannett right now, but I think it's also possible that both are there. I don't expect both to be gone, and it's going to be Gentry by himself. I think it'll be at least one of McDonald or Vannett.
All right, let's see.
Is that your feeling too? It's going to be at least one of those guys who will be sticking.
Yeah,
around?
I look. I mean, I'm abracadabra. It's magic. I think McDonald's still going to be on the roster come the 18th. You know, because
Yeah.
once again, I mean, if you're not going to pick up his option, you better get something done with Vanette right now, because you just don't know.
Yep.
You know, because if you don't pick up his option and you let Vanette hit free agency, there's no way to know for sure you're going to get him back unless you already know. You know.
Yeah.
But things can change in a hurry. I mean, unless there's a signed contract kind of thing. So I'll be, and I've been consistent with this. I think it's going to be more than just Gentry standing there in the empty room. I think McDonald's still got a very good chance of withstanding it. And based on everything that McDonald has said this offseason and kind of the hints, I guess you'd say, that Colbert's thrown out there, I would consider it a minor upset if McDonald's not on this roster past the 18th.
Yeah, I agree. But how do you make everything else work? And tag Dupree and all that, I just don't understand right now.
We shall find out very soon. Let's see. Oh, Jason Hughes writes in, the email is to make the case for the Steelers to make an unpopular series of moves here.
No.
Jason writes in, trade Ben Roethlisberger to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for their 2020 first-round draft pick, 14th overall.
Coming in hot to start. Ooh.
Woo.
Okay.
I guess you just push that button and trade Roethlisberger to Tampa Bay for their 2020 first-round draft pick.
What's the rest of his plan?
Use the saved cap space to sign. Here, let's delve into this real quick here. And what you save for Ben Roethlisberger. You would have to do that fairly quick here, because Ben is due a $12.5 million roster bonus here a couple days after the start of the new league year. So if you don't want to be on the hook for that, you better trade that along with his $8.5 million base salary here real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And if you did trade him, I mean, look, you're going to have $25 million in dead money as it is, straight out, and Ben's set to count $33.5 million against the cap. So, you get a big old savings of what, about $8.5 million?
Mm-hmm. Not a whole lot when we're talking franchise quarterback stuff.
So I mean, we're already whittling away his what he's wanting to do here. Use the saved cap space to sign some of their priority free agents and or veteran free agent quarterback to compete with and push Rudolph this season. So he wants to turn around and take that $8.5 million and do a lot of things with it, like sign a veteran free agent quarterback and I guess a few other guys. On draft day, then, he says trade the first round obtained from Tampa Bay for a 2021 first round draft pick and whatever else they can get, given strong deference to teams likely to have a high pick in 2021. Boy, he's got this all mapped out, like Cincinnati, Miami, the Chargers, Giants, etc. So then he wants to take, in other words, that first-round pick that you got from Tampa Bay, 14th overall, he wants to trade it to get what you can get and make sure you get an early round 2021 draft pick. Then he goes on to say, draft a premium running back prospect with their second-round pick this year, Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, etc. A couple things that Alex and I really don't want the team to do. In the 2021, this is number 5, trade up in 2021, trade up to get a blue chip prospect quarterback they like. If they do not like any quarterbacks, trade out and do the same in 2022. Wow. He goes, what are the chances that Ben comes back this season and leads the Steelers to the Super Bowl? Ben is at the end of his career. His performance has been declining for the past couple of seasons. How good can he be without being able to lean on Antonio Brown?
Okay, there's a whole lot of information there. I mean, I guess in his offseason plan, this team's just not going to win a Super Bowl for the next 2 years and just not really going to compete for one. I guess is the outline, because if you're getting a rookie in 2021. And then, I mean, what are the odds that Ben can win a Super Bowl? I don't know how to quantify that. What are the odds any
He says Ben's not basically Ben's not worth a damn, but yet get the 14th overall pick for him.
Right. I just obviously, I mean, none of those things are even being entertained or going to happen. That would not be my offseason plan.
And he's got his tinfoil hat on because the Bucs could win it with Ben and Arians.
But they can't do it in Pittsburgh.
Right.
Yeah.
Ben fits his offense. I believe they would trade their 2020 first-round pick. Yikes. He has a disclaimer here. This plan is made with the assumption that Justin Herbert will be drafted by pick 14. If he should happen to fall, the Steelers should draft him this year. Also, if they fall in love with Jake Fromm, they should draft him either at 14 or trade down and draft him if they believe he'll still be on the board for a while. The glut of quality free agent quarterbacks this year could result in some good prospects dropping lower than they. Boy, Jason, I don't know what you drank or smoked before putting that one out there. Ooh. What do you think?
It's a plan. It's a lot of words. It's not my plan.
Michael Ojimadu, how do you pronounce the name from Iowa?
Michael O. I don't know how to say the whole.
Hey, Dave and Alex, I'll keep this one short, just like the message I sent before this in another interview I heard in a potential value guide. This guy is listed as a quarterback, but has history as a linebacker safety, again for depth, but versatile enough to give you snaps in other places. He has ball skills and loves the physicality of the game. If you could tag this one on with the other one, I'm not sure I saw the other one. Let's see if I don't see the other one here. But anyway, Michael O is the guy that he wants us to look at here. What do you know about Michael O from Iowa?
I like him. I think all the things he said are accurate. His physicality, Iowa kid, smart, tough. Corner is just one of those things where it really feels like a luxury right now, assuming that Hilton and all them stay. So I like it, but just not really in the cards considering all the other needs this year for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I agree. I think I've seen just a clip of about 7 plays of him. That's about all I know about him so far. So I haven't studied him yet there. All right, I think that's enough for this show, Alex. You and I will get back after it again on Friday, and who knows what deadlines have been moved by then. But at least we'll be closer. Let's see, Saturday, we still won't know the players' vote outcome, right? Because that's going to happen on Saturday. So I don't know. We'll see if the Steelers do anything between now and Friday, which I don't know, kind of doubtful, right?
Yeah, probably not. If everything's the same, status quo, they're probably gonna. The whole league's gonna hold. Like I said, the Patriots aren't even talking to Tom Brady because they're just seeing which way the CBA goes. So the whole league right now is just kind of hanging out till this thing gets resolved.
Yeah, we're gonna continue to speculate about the speculation that's been speculated about the speculation. That's what we have on tap right now for Friday. Obviously, in the meantime, if you got a question you want answered, you can send this to us, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. You follow me on Twitter @Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter @Alex_Kozora. Follow the show @Terrible Podcast. Once again, email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upright navigational bar. Also, if you want an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button, upright navigational bar. We just had kind of a redesign with some things there, so bear with us if some ads are creeping through, maybe to the ad-free version. First and foremost, let us know if that's happening. And number two, once we find out what might be creeping into the ad-free version side there, we'll get that fixed as soon as possible. So in the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.